Right here from Metal Wani, and with us today we have the drummer whom I always introduce as a musician who has played in just about every metal band on this earth, Gene Hoglan. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Yeah, that's pretty apt titles.
Definitely. Now, just a couple of days are left for the second phase of destruction in the form of the Atomic Clock Part 2. So finally, you have another DVD coming up, so I'm sure you must be super stoked to have it out for your fans who've been waiting for a long time.
I absolutely am. I'm so excited for this. And, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to check it out yet.
I already have.
But, oh, wonderful. Okay, cool. It's super fun. It's, as I'm not sure any of your questions on this, but so I won't say too much yet, but it's, first of all, one thing I've been forgetting to mention is that it will be available through my website, HoglanIndustries.com. I just try to get that one out of the way first because I kind of forget all of that stuff until the very end. It was like, oh yeah, God, this is how you get it. But it was a few years between the first and the second, and I had so many ideas left over from the first that it was, just natural that, okay, at some point I'll be doing another one. And the exciting difference in this one is I'm playing along to a lot of the original tracks that I recorded, when I recorded them with, from bands like Testament and Death, of course, and Strapping Young Lad. We have a really amazing mix of the song Skeksis. It's like a totally alternative mix than the album. It's got no vocals, no samples. You just hear the rhythm tracks, and that's really exciting. That's pretty cool. That'll give people kind of a new insight to that song for the Strapping fans out there. So it's 2 hours of awesome amazingness, I hope, and I definitely tried to make it for like the first one. I tried to make the first one for more than just drummers. If you're not even a musician, you can enjoy this one, I hope.
That's exactly my point. I was coming to that because it kind of felt like, like me coming over to your studio, we are having a chat and you're telling me about your career, like you're telling me about these songs. It's more like a very, sort of a decision, a conscious decision to have a sort of a casual feeling to this, DVD more than being extremely serious because you're all about fun. Everyone knows that. So the DVD clearly reflects that about you trying to explain in your own style. So something from this DVD made me feel really good was how things kind of came spontaneous, dynamic at the same time instead of you planning it out in your mind way ahead that what you're going to do.
Indeed, now you hit that one on the head, Vitek. That is my approach. I know I have a basic template of some of the subjects I want to cover with each little chat that I do on it, and then it's just wing it off the top of your head. I do everything like that. Like clinics, those are all winged. What's the word? But and this one is the same. And I do try to make it sound like it's just, you're right, like a casual conversation between a couple of old friends.
Right.
That's kind of how I try to do anything I do. Try to bring the watcher in, the listener in from a real personable standpoint. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, and it's always that the look on your face because it's crazy the amount of composure you maintain when there is so much going on with your drumming. I mean, I've seen you live, I'm seeing you in the DVDs, and the only people at least from a drummer's perspective, because I'm a drummer myself, I can relate to is you and Marco Miniman, because you both have that sort of a look on the face. There's a certain sense of joy on face where you guys are doing it instead of kind of, having that real aggression. So how are you able to maintain this composure while you're playing drums, be it on the albums or live or DVD?
I think that's probably because, like, God, since like the Dark Angel days, I've always just I guess what I'm playing, and especially like in the more extreme songs, I tend to kind of go into, like, I've always just referred to it as like, you know, my Zen place, you know, like I'm pretty blissful when I'm playing, and I think that calm that I have inside as I'm playing, it allows me to take in all the elements of what I'm doing and just apply the most aggression towards anything. Like when you're really calm and you're like, that's kind of why I refer to, I use a sniper reference in the DVD, because that's more like what I feel like. I do feel pretty calm as I'm excuse me, picking people off individually, as opposed to just like roaring in with a giant bomb and blowing that up.
Right.
I just want to take people out individually. Boy, that's pretty strange. There you go, NSA, if you're listening in on this conversation. But that's how I try to equate my drumming. I just get into a Zen place, and I'm able to do the most damage, I hope.
Definitely, because, you know, like, you know, you said that in the first part of the DVD, you know, you covered certain aspects of it and which were not covered are now present in this, and one of them being the gallops or the pulses in general. Now, you know, the way you have explained it on the DVD is pretty much in depth, because not just during the blast beats, but there's so much more you do with your left being very strong. So on Brotherhood of the Snake, on the album, I found a lot of moments, or even on Dark Roots to be precise, where you use these gallops in a much different style, like a Gene Hoglan style. So as a drummer who loves blast beats, how important do you feel to add these to kind of make it more fun?
Well, that's cool. I definitely, like, there are so many times that I know that blast beats by many are played single-footed, just on the right foot, just
Yep.
and that's pretty impressive. You know, I take the lazier form of that, and I'll do the alternating 16th notes underneath. And as you're doing those 16th notes, that's where I'm always trying to think of a beat that will serve the blast beat, a pattern for the kicks that will serve the blast beat. And that's where, like, a lot of times in the old strapping days, that's where I would just come up with some military kind of,
Right.
something like that going underneath the blast beat up top. And I just, for me, it makes the beat more interesting, and I hopefully for the listener, it's kind of like, oh, well, he could be doing something really simple there, but man, it sounds like he's doing something a little, he's blasting with his feet too.
Right.
And I just try to make the blast beats on their own, if they're, I find there's an application for them. You need to apply them in the proper perspective. For me, as a listener, I'm not a big fan of a blast beat through the entire song. That gets a little slow,
monotonous.
And so if you're trying to do something to, even if it's only a short little burst of a blast, like 10, 15 seconds or something, 10 seconds, 5 seconds, try to make the entire application of it interesting for the listener. So hopefully I achieve that.
Definitely. Right. I've been speaking to Eric in a while. I think we did some 2 to 3 interviews with Testament from last 1 year, when everyone is talking about the title track being the fastest blast beat you played. And the moment I heard the song when it was released, it was clear to me that, there's a reason why you're called an atomic clock, and you just seem to, just chuck that over and just go to the next level as much as possible. So for you, as a person who loves grooves, who loves, like you said, the gallops, how important is it for you to evolve instead of just being a drummer who can do just about anything?
I know people are talking about, like maybe the band is talking about the blast beat at the beginning of Brotherhood of the Snake. Look, I'll flat out be honest with you, that evolved. By the time we recorded it, that evolved into not a blast beat. That's not a blast beat. That's just me doing alternates, 16th notes on the snare.
Right.
And I'm doing whatever pattern beat. I'm not doing a blast beat, and I'm not much of a reader of forums, like where people are talking about advanced all shit. Wow, great blast beat. But when I saw him play live, he's only doing
right.
Just upstairs. So it's like I want to clarify that now. There are the fastest blasts I've ever played on the album, but that is not an example of it. So I don't have to wear a T-shirt on stage saying I know it's not a blast beat.
Right on. I get that completely. Now, Gene, we spoke about 18 months ago, like you said, and we were discussing about you and Jim being busy working on the new Dark Angel stuff. So we're now heading towards 2 years. So what is happening in the Dark Angel camp? Is something going to shape up this year with the new record?
Well, I personally would love to see that. It's kind of what's happening with Dark Angel is a lot of my schedule kind of, gets in the way, I realize. And when Jim Durkin and I have gotten together on multiple occasions, we don't get that long to concentrate on stuff. We have very, very tiny windows. Mm-hmm. And for a while there, I was going up once a week. And, Jim has a career outside of music that is a, very lucrative career for him, and he has to maintain that. So we sometimes have very tiny windows with which to work, but we do our best to get things done. We've got about 5 songs for it, and I hope at some point this year, and that's another thing, is that Jim and I, we do tend to work best when we are in the same room together,
right?
Playing guitars together. I've tried I filmed, a bunch of riffs on my iPad, send them over to Jim. We've tried the Skype writing sessions together, and it just works best when we are in the same room together, and that's where, between Jim's schedule and my schedule, we're doing the best we can. Like I say, we're up to 5 killer songs, so at some point, I hope this year that we get to just finalize everything, finish everything off, find a window with which to go into the studio. That's another thing. A lot of times I would travel up to, like, say, Vancouver to track drums and stuff, but maybe it would be best if we were to try it in LA so Jim could be close by, because I don't know if Jim can get, 2 weeks off to do a record. That he might be able to, he might not. So, there's all these other factors going into the actual recording, but I would like to keep moving forward and getting us to the space of putting out a record. And it's the fact is not lost on me that our 2014 and early 15 of doing our 6 or 7 shows that we've done. I realize that there might be a bit of momentum lost from not having an album out right directly, but I can't even worry about that. I don't. But I do have the labels who are interested in I get talked with from labels, and they're like, they'll mention that, like, man, there's a great momentum, you're losing it. It's like, hey, what can you do? Like, I'm not losing my momentum. I'm not losing my momentum for the project. So, it's just like with Dark Angel, we work on our own pace, our own time. There's no deadline for any of this, and any momentum lost will be easily regained in the months preceding the album's release.
Absolutely. And also the new Galaktikon album is also keeping you busy. I guess you've been tracking it last year, and the album is going to be out sometime this year with ideally supposed to be a new Deathklok album, isn't it?
Well, I'll put it this way, like, we are mixing it right now. Like, we're getting all the mixes, Brian Beller and myself, have received the mixes from Ulrich Wild, our producer, engineer, and Brendan, and now Beller and I have been doing our tweaks to it, and we just returned them back to, we've been, frantically emailing files back and forth. I'm currently in San Diego. Ulrich is based in Los Angeles. Beller has been on the road, much of it, and the NAMM show happened this week, and that kind of shuts everything down for a day. But it's the process of mixing it, and it's amazing. And I like, the best way I can explain it is that if you're a fan of Deathklok, holy moly, this is pretty damn Deathkloky music. And if you're a fan of some of the storylines of Deathklok, there's some stuff in there for you as well. And if you're a fan of Galakticon, and even that clock opera, Doomstar Requiem clock opera thing that we did a couple of years back, there's elements of that as well. So it is definitely very, very Brendan Small. And hey, man, Brendan Small was Deathklok, so there's a lot of that element going on. If you're a Deathklok fan, you're really going to dig this record. The performances are killer. We all played great. The songs are amazing. I love every song on there, and I'm really excited about it. So
awesome.
And we all are. And I hope, I know Brendan's talking about, hopefully getting it out this year. I can see that, maybe like, the fall, late summer, fall, or something like that. That's about the natural timeline for this. If it gets completed within the next month or so, all the mixes are final and all that. So I can assume it would be coming out this year. Nothing tells me that it wouldn't be. So there you go, man. Super excited. Maybe we can hit the road with it a little bit.
Awesome.
That none of us are sure about, but hey, the intent is there. We'd love to take this on the road. I love playing with Brendan, Brian, and Mike Keane. That's always a real pleasure. Always a real pleasurable tour when you go out. So there you go.
Definitely. Now, you worked with Chuck on obviously the legendary records like The Individual or even The Symbolic. And even on the DVD, you have kind of expressed the sort of, admiration you had towards him as a songwriter, because he has written some of the benchmark records in the history of metal. So, having, being given this opportunity to drum on these records and possibly Chuck telling you to go berserk, whereas he can do as much as anything on top of your drums. So for you, a memorable moment working with him, what was it which kind of makes you feel that Chuck is slightly different than rest of the songwriters you have worked throughout your career?
Well, one thing I do know about Chuck is Chuck was never, ever concerned about what his fan base thought. And I've been in the same boat. I recognize that in myself. It's like, you really do have to write for you. And Chuck was a prime example of that. You never saw him kowtowing to what the fans might want, or because he would have just churned out one death metal album after another, and he would have never grown as a musician if he was so concerned with what the fans thought. Because I'll flat out tell you, the fans did not move with death.
True.
The old school, the fans that like Scream Bloody Gore and Leprosy and even Spiritual Healing, it was a challenge for them to grasp Chuck's new styles of music. And that's, this is one thing. I did a couple interviews yesterday, and they were talking about the legacy of death and why has death, 15, 16 years after Chuck's passing, why has death still remained a very talked about band? And that's where I started I've been realizing recently that, it's, it is one thing for a band to, play an already established style of music and and do well at it, become popular, you play it well, but you didn't invent it by any means. There are bands out there that do that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Chuck was always uncomfortable with the term Godfather of death metal. He was never comfortable with that term because he felt like that placed all of the credit on his shoulders. And he was always like, or blame for that matter. But he was always trying to express to people that, hey, I didn't invent this. You know, there are bands that were playing this style of music before me, so, you know, I want to give those bands their credit, their due. But people still, like, even though Chuck would come out and say that, people would still kind of just sometimes ignore that and just believe that Death invented death metal.
Right.
And so, fair enough, that is a popular opinion. So, to some degree, Death invented death metal. When Human came along, and there had been other progressive type approaches towards the heavier metal, you know, bands like Atheist and definitely Watchtower, being aggressive, technical, yet metal. But Death with Human and Sean Reinert's, you know, incredible benchmark-setting drumming, set that up a level, and Death had something to do with the creation of progressive death metal. Then, around the times of Individual and Symbolic, Death helped create melodic death metal, because most of it was pretty aggressive back in those days. And so it is one thing to be a band that jumps on somebody else's style, plays it well, gets popular, sells lots of records, that's cool. But hell, Death, you know, invented 3 different styles of music there, you know, or were progenitors of 3 different styles of music. And that is where I think Death's legacy lies. And
absolutely,
Chuck was never afraid to just do his own thing and not be concerned with what fans thought. And that's why I was saying, when Individual and Symbolic came out, people were horrified. And so, you know, the old school death metalers, all the heaviest dudes around, those guys were horrified at those albums and just thought they were terrible. And for every old school death metal head that the band lost, they would gain 2 or 3 people that are like, hey, I've never appreciated this style of music until Individual Thought Patterns or Symbolic or something. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely, man. That's really good to hear from that. And Gene, obviously, you know, you would be on road throughout this year, so I'll be catching you sometime in States with Testament. And you know, good luck with the DVD release. It smashed the records hit by the previous one, and obviously, I'll catch you on road someday, and we will have a drink together.
Hey, that sounds amazing, Vitek. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and best of luck to yourself. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you again in person, my friend.